Elliptical and rectangular selection tools. Hi guys, today we're opening a large and very important topic, and it will be dedicated to the selection tool. This is very often a situation when we need to separate an object from the rest of the image in order to place it, for example, in some other place, change its color, brightness, saturation, and do many other things. And that's where the selection tools help us. With the help of them, we can separate even the most complex objects from the background. There are a lot of selection tools, and today we will start with the simplest tools that belong to the group of geometric selection tools. They are located below the Move tool. If we click on the arrow at the bottom, we will see the rectangular marquee tool, the elliptical marquee tool, and we will start with the elliptical marquee tool. Using it, we will now place this clock in this interior. And at the same time, during this exercise, we will see how this tool works. Let's start selecting the clock. The elliptical marquee tool is perfect for all objects that have a regular round oval shape. Let's take it. It is invoked by the letter M. Like other instruments of this group, repeated keystroke leads to a change of tool, and see how it works. If I now click with the left mouse button, hold it, and start moving cursor, round or oval area will be selected. The selected shape depends on the direction of my hand. For example, I have such an area now. Inside these marching ants, as they are called, is a selected area. But of course, I don't have it exactly the way I would like it to be right now, because it has to follow the contour of the clock. So I will cancel it. In order to cancel the selection, you can press Ctrl+D or choose the Select in the Select menu. So cancel. And let's try again. There are several rules that allow us to make such selection more conveniently. First, we can hold down Ctrl, and then either the correct circle or the correct square will be drawn. Well, for example, I have drawn a circle like this. However, it doesn't quite correspond to the area that I need. Now I release Shift and I can move it a little bit, but my circle is still too small. I can adjust its size as well as its proportions with the help of a special command. To do this, go to the Select menu and choose Transform Selection. Please note, this is a completely different command, not the one we studied earlier, which is invoked by the combination Ctrl+T. It is not free transform. This is a transformation that relates specifically to the selected areas. So we choose to transform selection. And now we can set the selected area in this way, exactly so that it completely coincides with our object. Then press Enter and I just click somewhere in an empty place. And we have created a selected area. And now we can move our clock somewhere. But I want to show you another option. I cancel the selection, pressing Ctrl+D. And now I'm doing the same thing, but holding down the Alt and Shift keys. And in this case, drawing is done from the center. That is, I get exactly the same correct circle, but drawing from the center. We have created the selection in order to copy it. So press Ctrl+C, go to the file we need and press Ctrl+V. And now we need to reduce the clock a little bit in size. Let's press Ctrl+T. This is a completely different transform mode. Please do not confuse it with the mode that concerns the selected areas and is called from the Select menu. Let's reduce the clock to the size we need. Let's say to this. We'll place it in the right place. And in order for it to look naturally in this interior, we need to make a shadow. In one of the previous lessons, we created a shadow using layer styles. And now we'll try to do the same with the help of a selected area. And to begin with, let's take a color sample using the eyedropper tool, so that the shadows are in the same color. And we'll need to create a layer below the layer with clock, because the shadow needs to be below it. In order for our layer to be created below the layer that is selected, we press the Ctrl and click on the icon of the new layer. And we have created a clean layer. Now we take the elliptical marquee tool again. And look, now I draw some kind of a circle. And I will fill it with the foreground colors that we took with the eyedropper. Let me fill it up. I press Alt and Backspace. And we got this. And now note that in the Settings menu there is such a parameter as feather, which allows you to make the borders of the selected area softer. Let's set, for example, 20 pixels and do the same. I'm also drawing a circle now, and I fill it in the same way by pressing Alt plus Backspace. Look, the edges have already become much more blurred. Thus, we can adjust the level of feathering. And let's do it again. Let's set 30 pixels. And draw something like a shadow. Like that. Press Alt plus Backspace and cancel the selection using Ctrl plus D. And that's my shadow. I can move it. And now that we no longer have the selected area, we can transform the size of the shadow using the keyboard shortcut we are already familiar with, Ctrl plus T. For example, I want to make it a little like this, and perhaps reduce the level of its opacity. That's what we ended up with using Elliptical marquee tool. And now let's move on to rectangular selection tool and use it to place a picture in the interior. To do this, we will need such a wide frame, in which we will later place our picture. So we take the rectangular selection tool, and I want to tell you that in general this tool works exactly the same as the previous one. Settings are the same, and therefore we will now learn them using this example. Please pay attention to the squares at the top of the menu. If we have this first square turned on, then we just draw a new selected area. Here, for example, I have selected the picture this way. And if I start to draw something in another place, then the previous selected area disappears, and a new one appears. Let's cancel it for now. When the next button is turned on, we have each subsequent selected areas added to the previous ones. This can be very convenient for selection of some stepped objects, for example, ladder. Look, I have drawn another new area, and I've got a plus icon next to the cursor. I added, and I have one previous one added. The previous areas doesn't disappear, and we can, for example, select some objects of such a complex shape in this case. Now let's break the sequence a bit and talk about the last button. See what happens when we use it. For example, I select an area, and then from the center of this area I select another one. See, like this. And we have formed a figure that is intersection of these two selected areas, and when I release the mouse button, that's exactly what remains. Sometimes it is also convenient for selection of some areas that are complex in shape, which are based on rectangular geometric shapes. And let's move on to the next button, which we just need. We use it and select the area along the contour of the frame. And now I'm drawing another area inside. And as you can see, my cursor has acquired such an additional icon, minus. And this means that the area that I will select now will be subtracted from the previous area. Thus, I will have one frame and nothing extra. I start from the corner, and just like that, I carefully select the inner part of the frame. And that's it. Now I copy and paste it into the file I need. Of course, the frame is too big, so we'll reduce it to the size we need. Well, let's say like this. And now we'll put a picture in this frame. And now we'll make a small digression in order for our work to look more natural. Now the color of the frame is quite different from the general color scheme of the entire image, and let's make it so that it is more suitable in tone and color. We will take the eyedropper tool and take a color sample here. This color has become our foreground color. And now we go to the image menu, Adjustments. We choose Hue Saturation. We have a window like this, and here we have to check the box next to the word Colorize. And in this case, our active layer is colorized. You see, the frame was white, and when you put the check mark, it acquired the same color as the color of the table lamp. And we agree with this and click OK, and we proceeded directly to the creation of our picture. Open the file with the picture and place it in the collage we create. You already know how to do it. Initially, the size of painting is quite large. I'm reducing it. So it is necessary, of course, to make this layer lower than the layer with the frame. Okay, that's how I have entered the image into the frame. And again, the tone of the picture is knocked out of the overall image, but the previous method will not work here. See what happens. Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation. We click Colorize, and the image is now in sepia style. That is, it loses its color. It is simply tinted with the color that we have chosen. Therefore, this is not suitable here. It is suitable for colorizing some of the same type of objects. Therefore, we remove the stick from Colorize. And let's think about how we can do it differently. And we can also do it like this. Let me take a color sample here, where we have such a pretty thick shadow. I will create a new clean layer above the layer with a picture. It is not visible anymore. Now I will choose a gradient. Here it is. My gradient is now a transition between the foreground color and the background color. We have now selected the foreground color. I have this gradient ready, and I take the tool again, a rectangular selection, and I draw the same rectangular selection on the clean new layer I created, which is about the layer with the picture. Now I go back to the gradient tool and draw a line like this, filling this rectangle with a gradient. That's what we got. Now if I set the multiply mode and slightly change the level of opacity the way I need, I can make my image look more natural. And now we can cancel the selected area. We no longer need it, and that's what we got. But now we just need to create a shadow under the picture. I press Ctrl again, click on the click layer icon, create a new clean layer, and let's create a shadow. Again, I take a rectangle selection tool. Let's set a feather of 30, and I draw an area that will be a shadow. Well, probably something like this, and fill it with the color of its foreground. Please note that when feather is used, we draw a rectangle with rounded corners. So, we fill it, pressing Alt plus Backspace. Cancel the selection, pressing Ctrl plus D. And, in order for us to have a transparent and more expressive shadow, choose the Multiply Blending mode, which we of course adjust as we need it. And we can always somehow move this shadow, somehow refine it if there is any need for it. Well, that's how it is. I will probably leave it like this. That's how our picture fit more or less well into the interior. Of course, it can be done even better and even more realistic, but this requires knowledge of other program features that we'll learn as we progress through this course. I have now changed the transparency in the layer with a gradient. I think it's better this way. It seems to me that the light of the frame looks unnatural. Therefore, we move to the layer with a frame. This is the layer 1. We press Ctrl plus T, and now we press the right mouse button and select a 180-degree rotation. That's all. As you can see, the frame has changed its location, and the lighting on it has become more natural. Let's move on to the homework. The first homework for today is to put the clock in the interior and create a shadow. And the second homework assignment will be just this simple collage that we have just made. And we will continue studying the selection tools in the next lesson. And it's all for today. It was Peter Romanov and AIM School. See you next time.